Rain fell like a curtain over the city, heavy, relentless, washing neon lights into the black asphalt below. For Eddie Ramos, a night shift taxi driver in Chicago, it was just another long, lonely shift. He'd been driving the same streets for years, listening to late-night radio, waiting for the occasional fare, and watching the city breathe under the rain. But that night, everything felt wrong. The air inside the cab was colder than usual. The radio kept crackling with static, and his rearview mirror, fogged, trembling in the vibration, kept catching something in the back seat even when it was empty. It was around 2:15 a.m. when he saw her, a woman standing at the edge of West Belmont Avenue soaked to the bone, wearing a long white coat. Her hair clung to her face, her head tilted down slightly as if listening to something only she could hear. He slowed down, rolled the window halfway. "You need a ride?" She nodded once, wordlessly, and got in. Her clothes were dripping, but she didn't seem to notice. She sat in the back, her hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead. Eddie hesitated before turning on the meter. "Where to?" Her voice was quiet. "Ridgeview Cemetery." Eddie frowned. "That's outside the city limits." She didn't answer. He shrugged. A long ride meant better pay. He pulled out into the rain, the tires hissing through puddles. The only sound was the wipers scraping across the windshield and the soft hum of the heater. After a few minutes, Eddie tried small talk. "Rough night, huh?" No response. He looked at her through the mirror. She hadn't moved, still staring straight ahead, face half lit by the passing streetlights. But what unsettled him was the mirror itself. The reflection didn't quite match. Her reflection was slightly delayed. When the car turned right, her reflection turned a second later. Eddie blinked. Maybe he was just tired. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. Now the reflection was smiling. She wasn't. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. "You okay back there?" Her voice came out softer this time, almost a whisper. "You missed the turn." He glanced at the GPS. "No, it says Ridgeview straight ahead." "Not that way." Eddie's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "You have to take the old road." He'd driven that route before. The old Ridgeview access road had been closed for years after a landslide. It was nothing but cracked asphalt and overgrown weeds now. He forced a laugh. "Lady, that road's been shut down forever. You sure about that?" She looked at him for the first time. Her eyes were gray, almost colorless. "I always take that road." Something about the way she said it chilled him. He turned off the radio. The silence that followed was deafening. The rain had slowed now, replaced by a thick fog rolling in from the fields. He drove on, trying not to look in the mirror, trying not to think about how her reflection still smiled when she didn't. When they reached the intersection, the GPS beeped, signal lost. He sighed. "All right, guess we're taking your road." The cab turned onto the old access road. The pavement cracked beneath the tires, branches scraping against the sides like fingernails. No lights, no signs, just fog and darkness. The air grew colder. His breath began to fog the glass. And then he realized something. He couldn't see her reflection anymore. He looked up. The back seat was empty. He slammed the brakes. Jesus Christ! The cab skidded to a stop. He spun around. No one there. Just the wet imprint of her coat on the seat. Eddie's heart was pounding. He opened the door, stepped out, and shouted into the fog. "Ma'am, hello?" His voice echoed off the trees, fading into the mist. He got back into the cab, trembling. That's when he noticed the rearview mirror again. She was sitting there, in the reflection, smiling at him from the back seat. Her lips moved silently. Then the mirror cracked down the middle. Eddie jumped out of the car, stumbling into the road. The fog swallowed him whole. When he looked back, the cab's headlights flickered once, then died. He ran down the road until he saw another car coming. He waved frantically. The driver stopped. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" Eddie pointed back at his cab. "There's a woman. She was in my car. She just disappeared." The man frowned. "You mean that cab?" Eddie turned to look. There was nothing there. No cab, no lights, just an empty road. They found his taxi the next morning, abandoned near the old Ridgeview Bridge. The engine was still running. The passenger door was open. Inside on the back seat was a waterlogged coat. And etched into the fogged rearview mirror, as if written by a finger, were 3 words. "Thank you, Eddie." Local police later discovered something strange. Back in 1963, a woman named Clara Haynes had been killed in a car accident on that same road, while taking a taxi to Ridgeview Cemetery for her husband's funeral. Her body was never found. Her driver vanished too. Some say on foggy nights, a white-coated woman still waits on Belmont Avenue. And if you stop to pick her up, you'll always end up taking the old road, the one that doesn't exist anymore. There's something strange about driving at night. The way the world narrows down to just the road ahead and the faint hum of tires beneath you. For Jake Turner, a rideshare driver from Tennessee, those long night drives used to be peaceful. The quiet hours after midnight were his escape. No traffic, no rush, just the sound of his engine and the voice of the GPS guiding him through the dark. But one night in the spring of 2022, that voice led him somewhere that didn't exist. Jake was working late that evening. He'd just finished his 5th fare and was thinking of calling it a night when a new ride request popped up. Pickup, Old Pine Creek Road. Drop-off, Gray Hollow Motel, about 20 miles outside the city. He hesitated. The location was deep in the countryside, an area that barely had cell service. But the pay was good, double surge rates. He accepted. As he left the city, the streets grew quieter. The lights faded, replaced by long stretches of winding road swallowed by trees. The GPS voice guided him calmly. "Turn left in 2 miles." He glanced at the map. The blue route line cut straight through a patch of forest, ending at the motel's location marker. But the motel didn't exist on any map Jake had seen before. He shrugged. Maybe it was new. When he reached Old Pine Creek Road, the asphalt turned rough, cracked, uneven, lined with roots breaking through the surface. His headlights caught the fog beginning to roll in. He slowed down. The GPS recalculated and said, "Continue straight for 3 miles." That's when his phone lost signal. He frowned. Come on, not now. But the voice still spoke, even though the phone screen had gone completely black. "Continue straight." Jake's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Wait, how are you still talking?" No answer. Just the faint hum of static, then the same voice, now slower. 2 miles and keep going." He looked around. The fog was thicker now, swallowing everything beyond the reach of his headlights. No houses, no street signs, no sound except the soft crunch of gravel under his tires. His dashboard clock flickered briefly, jumping backward 2 minutes. Then again. Then again. Jake pulled over, rubbing his temples. This is insane. He put the car in park, took a deep breath, and checked the passenger pickup info again. The name field was blank. The fare estimate read 0 pour, and the drop-off location had changed to something new. Destination ahead. The fog outside pressed against the windows like smoke. The temperature inside dropped. Jake turned on the heater, but it only blew cold air. Then the GPS spoke again, a whisper this time. "You're almost there." The voice didn't sound automated anymore. It sounded human. He leaned toward the screen. "Who is this?" "Turn left." He looked outside. There was no road, just a narrow dirt path leading into the woods. Jake shook his head. Nope, not happening. He tried to reroute, but the screen froze. The map began to redraw itself. The roads disappeared. Only one route remained, a glowing red line leading straight into the forest. He put the car in reverse, but the engine sputtered and died. The headlights dimmed. His phone buzzed once and displayed a single notification. "Rider has been waiting." Jake froze. What rider? He looked in the rearview mirror and saw movement in the fog behind the car. A figure stood there, barely visible, just an outline at first and then clearer as the fog thinned. A man tall and thin wearing a driver's cap. He was standing in the middle of the road, motionless. Jake blinked. The figure was gone. He tried the ignition again, nothing. Then slowly, the radio turned itself on. Soft static filled the car. Through the static, a faint voice whispered, "You missed the turn." Jake's pulse quickened. He slammed the door lock shut, his breath clouding the inside of the windshield. His headlights flickered once, and for half a second he saw someone sitting in the passenger seat. A man, smiling. No eyes. Jake screamed and turned, but the seat was empty. He didn't think. He just grabbed his flashlight, opened the door, and ran into the fog. The air was thick, heavy, and silent. Behind him, the car radio continued whispering, "Destination ahead, destination ahead." When he looked back, his car's lights were flickering like candles, the doors slowly opening and closing on their own. He ran until he hit a chain-link fence. Beyond it, a narrow wooden sign leaned sideways in the mud. He wiped the dirt from it and froze. Closed since 1972. Jake turned around. His car was gone. The road was gone. He was standing in an open field, surrounded by fog and silence. Then faintly from the distance, headlights. A car approached slowly, tires crunching on invisible gravel. It was his own car. The driver inside was him, expressionless, eyes fixed straight ahead, following the red route line on the GPS. At 6 a.m., police found Jake's car parked on an abandoned access road miles from Old Pine Creek. The engine was still running. The GPS showed a blank map with only one message flashing. Rerouting, rerouting, rerouting. Jake Turner was never found. Locals say sometimes at night, if you drive far enough down Old Pine Creek Road, your GPS will lose signal. And if you don't turn back right away, you'll see a red route appear, a road that leads into nowhere. And sometimes at the end of it, you'll see headlights behind you, following you all the way home. For Arthur Mills, driving a black cab through London's cold, wet streets was just a job, a way to pay rent and disappear into the background. He didn't mind the silence. In fact, he preferred it. But one February night, that silence turned into something he'd never forget. It was a foggy Wednesday around 2:40 a.m. Arthur was finishing his shift when a new fare appeared on his meter. Pickup from Baker Street Station. Destination, Southwark Bridge. A simple ride, 10 minutes at most. When he pulled up outside the empty station, no one was there. The streetlights hummed quietly, flickering through the mist. He was about to cancel when the back door opened. A man stepped in. He was tall, well-dressed, wearing a dark business suit and a bowler hat like something out of the 1970s. He carried no umbrella, no phone, no luggage. Just a small folded newspaper in his gloved hand. Arthur turned and asked, "Where to, mate?" The man didn't answer. He simply looked up and met Arthur's eyes in the mirror. Then he spoke quietly, "Southwark Bridge." His voice was low, crisp, and oddly old-fashioned, the way people spoke in black and white films. Arthur nodded. "Right you are." They drove off. At first it felt like any other fare, but a few minutes in, Arthur realized something strange. The man didn't move. Didn't shift his legs, didn't breathe visibly, didn't even blink. He just stared out the window at the dark streets rushing by. Arthur tried to break the tension. Rough night? No answer. He smiled awkwardly. You know, you're my last fare tonight, lucky you. Still nothing. When the cab passed under a streetlight, Arthur caught a better look in the mirror. The man's reflection was facing forward, but the real man was looking out the window. Arthur blinked. He looked again. The reflection slowly turned toward him before the man did. He gripped the wheel tighter. You all right back there? The man's eyes in the mirror looked gray, not the dull color of exhaustion, but pale, cloudy, like frost on glass. Arthur cleared his throat. You from around here? Used to be, the man said softly. Arthur laughed nervously. Yeah? Moved away then? Not exactly. They drove across the bridge. The fog thickened, swallowing the Thames below. The air in the cab grew colder, enough for condensation to frost the inside of the windows. The man finally spoke again. Stop here. Arthur slowed the cab and parked by the bridge's edge. No other cars were around, just the river, black and silent. £13.60, Arthur said, turning slightly. The man reached into his coat pocket and handed him a crumpled receipt. Yellowed, torn at the edges, stamped with faded ink. Arthur unfolded it. It wasn't cash. It was a taxi receipt dated March 3rd, 1978. Same route, same fare, same driver name, Arthur Mills. Arthur froze. Where'd you get this? The man smiled faintly. You dropped it. Arthur's pulse quickened. What the hell are you talking about? You drove me before, remember? Arthur stared at him. No, mate, I've never seen you before. Oh, but I remember you. You didn't stop when I asked. Arthur's chest tightened. What? You kept driving. The man leaned forward slowly, his breath clouding the glass partition. We went right off the bridge. Arthur's blood ran cold. He turned, heart hammering. The seat was empty. The cab lights flickered. Then softly from behind him a whisper. You should have stopped the first time. The mirror cracked down the center, spiderwebbing across his reflection. Arthur slammed the brakes, the cab screeching to a halt in the middle of the bridge. He jumped out, stumbling into the fog. There was no one there. Only his cab idling quietly, headlights shining into the mist. When he looked back through the window, the man was sitting inside again, but now Arthur could see the rest of him. His suit was soaked, his skin gray and bloated, water dripping down his face like he'd just climbed out of the river. Police found Arthur's taxi abandoned the next morning, doors open, meter still running. No sign of him anywhere. But on the passenger seat, folded neatly, was that same yellowed receipt. And written on the back in wet ink were the words, Fare complete, March 3rd, 1978. Locals say if you drive across Southwark Bridge after midnight, you might spot a black cab idling on the shoulder. Its lights flicker, but no one's behind the wheel. And if you look too long into the rearview mirror, you'll see a man sitting in the back seat, still waiting for his driver to stop. Dispatchers always say the radio never lies, but sometimes what comes through it shouldn't exist. In the spring of 2018, Linda Rowe had been working as a night dispatcher for Metro cabs in rural Pennsylvania for nearly a decade. Her job was simple: take the calls, log the fares, and listen to the voices of drivers drifting through static as they moved through the dark. She'd memorized every voice, calm, tired, human, until one night she heard one that wasn't. It was March 12th, just after 2 a.m. The night was quiet. The only sound in the small dispatch office was the steady hum of the radio and the tapping of rain against the window. Linda was halfway through her coffee when the static shifted. A faint voice came through the line. Dispatch, this is cab 52 requesting check-in. Linda smiled. Go ahead, 52, you're clear. There was a pause. Then faintly, passenger en route, route 19. Her smile faded slightly. Route 19 had been shut down years ago after a landslide destroyed a bridge. She glanced at her logs. Cab 52 hadn't been active in nearly a decade. "Cab 52?" she said slowly. "Repeat your location?" "Route 19, passenger pickup complete." The radio hissed. She checked the driver roster. Cab 52's last registered operator was Harold Price, a driver who'd vanished in 2008, the night his taxi went off the bridge on Route 19. Neither he nor his passenger were ever found. Linda froze. "Cab 52, what's your name?" "But Harold." She swallowed hard. "Harold, this is dispatch. You're not showing active in the system. Say again." "Passenger wants South Hill, says you know the way." Her hands trembled slightly. "Harold, Route 19 is closed. You can't be out there." Static again. Then, the faint sound of rain tapping against a windshield. And another voice in the background. Soft, female. "He's taking me home." Linda's skin went cold. "Who's the passenger, Harold?" She called from the payphone, said it was still working. "There are no payphones left on Route 19, Linda said quietly. Silence, then a long, static-filled sigh. "Bridge ahead, I can see the lights." "Harold, no, the bridge collapsed, you can't—" The transmission cut off mid-sentence. Linda called the local police, but they didn't take it seriously. By the time an officer checked the old road, there was nothing there. Just fog and broken asphalt leading to the collapsed bridge. She went back to her desk, staring at the radio. Maybe it was a prank, maybe an old frequency glitch. But at 2:17 a.m., the radio came alive again. "Dispatch, fare complete." The voice was faint, underwater. "Returning to base." Linda whispered, "Harold?" "You never answered back then." Static exploded through the line, a high, screeching tone that made her rip the headset off. When it stopped, the office was dead silent. Only the rain kept falling. She checked the system again. Cab 52 was still listed as inactive since 2008, but a new entry had appeared in the digital log, time-stamped just moments ago. 2:18 a.m., Route 19, passenger drop-off South Hill Cemetery. Her breath caught. South Hill Cemetery was where Harold Price had been buried. The next night, Linda came back to work early. She told herself she wouldn't answer if it happened again. She even unplugged the secondary radio unit. But somehow at exactly 2:17 a.m., the line buzzed back to life. "Dispatch, this is Cab 52, got your next fare." She didn't move. "Pick up for you." The voice wasn't Harold's anymore. It was her own. They found Linda's office empty the next morning. Her chair was still warm, the coffee still half full. Her headset lay on the desk, radio humming faintly. When the supervisor checked the log, he found a new entry. 1:15 a.m. Route 19, passenger Linda Rowe. Driver Harold Price. Fare complete. Truckers who drive near the ruins of Route 19 claim they sometimes see headlights in the fog. A single yellow cab, creeping slowly along the broken edge of the bridge. You can hear the faint crackle of radio chatter if you stop and listen. Two voices, calm and steady, both repeating the same line over and over. "Dispatch, Cab 52, passenger delivered, returning to base." For 20 years, Miguel Alvarez drove the night shift around Los Angeles International Airport. The graveyard hours when the city went quiet and the world felt like it was holding its breath. He'd seen it all. Angry passengers, tired flight attendants, even the occasional celebrity slipping into the back seat without a word. But there was one night Miguel never talked about. A night when he picked up a passenger who shouldn't have been there. It was June 14th, 2019, just after 3 a.m. The fog had rolled in from the Pacific, heavy and thick enough to swallow the terminal lights whole. Miguel sat in his cab at the far end of the LAX queue, heater humming. coffee gone cold, watching ghostly planes vanish into the mist. That's when he noticed movement near the fence, the one that ran along the back access road near the old service gate. At first, he thought it was an animal, but then he saw her. A young girl, maybe 16, standing barefoot by the chain-link fence. She wore a torn white dress, the kind people used to wear to church decades ago. Her hair hung in wet strands over her face, and her skin looked almost gray under the orange glow of the distant runway lights. She didn't move. She just stared at his cab through the fog. Miguel got out slowly, calling, "Hey, you all right, mija? You lost?" No answer. The fog swirled between them like breath. She lifted her hand and pointed toward his taxi. That was all. Miguel hesitated, heart pounding. He was used to strange encounters, but something about the stillness, the way she didn't shiver in the cold, made him uneasy. "You need a ride?" he finally asked. The girl nodded once. He opened the door for her. As she passed, the air around her turned freezing. His breath fogged instantly. She sat in the back seat, quiet and perfectly still. Miguel adjusted his mirror. "So, where to?" Her voice came soft, like it was coming from a long way off. "Home." "Sure," he said gently. "And where's home exactly?" "Down by El Segundo, past the old airfield." He frowned. "El Segundo? That area's fenced off, kid. Ain't no homes there anymore." She didn't reply. She just stared out the window, her reflection faint against the fog. He turned on the meter anyway and pulled out of the lot. The road to El Segundo was deserted, just long stretches of fog, and the occasional blinking runway beacon glowing like a ghost light in the distance. Miguel's tires hissed on the damp asphalt. After 10 minutes, he asked, "You got family there?" She finally spoke again. "I used to." The way she said it made his stomach tighten. He laughed nervously. "You're not running away or anything, right?" "No," she said quietly. "I've been waiting." He frowned. "Waiting for what?" "For someone to take me home." He felt a chill crawl up his neck. He turned the radio on for comfort, but all he got was static. He tried the heater next, but it only blew cold air. The farther they drove, the thicker the fog became. Eventually, she whispered, "You can stop here." Miguel slowed the car. "Here? There's nothing around." "My home is just through there." She pointed through the fence beside the road. Beyond it, he could just barely make out a faint orange glow flickering in the distance, like the shimmer of a fire through smoke. Miguel frowned. "That can't be right. There's no road through that fence." "There was," she said softly, "before it burned." His mouth went dry. "Before what burned?" The girl turned her head slowly toward him. Her eyes met his in the mirror. They were dark, but empty. "The orphanage." Miguel froze. He knew the story, the El Segundo orphanage fire from 1973. It had killed 17 children and 2 caretakers. The cause was never found. He forced a laugh. "Nice try, kid, you almost got me." She didn't respond. She was still looking at him in the mirror, except her reflection was smiling. Her real face wasn't. Miguel's hand trembled as he reached for the gear shift. "I'm taking you back to the terminal," he said. "It's too late," she whispered. The radio crackled suddenly, faint at first, then louder. Through the static came the sound of crackling flames, and a child's voice whispered through the speaker, "He's here." Miguel's eyes widened. He grabbed the radio. "Dispatch, this is Cab 44, you copy?" The only reply was the faint sound of children laughing. Then silence. He turned around. The back seat was empty. His heart slammed in his chest. He jumped out of the cab, stumbling toward the fence. Through the fog, he could see the orange glow flickering brighter now. Not like fire, but like dozens of candles swaying in the dark. Shapes began to appear beyond the fence, Small figures, children holding hands, their silhouettes swaying in the mist. And standing in front of them, the girl in the white dress. She smiled softly. "You found me," Miguel whispered. "Jesus Christ. We can go home now." He ran back to the cab and slammed the door. The engine roared to life, headlights cutting through the fog. He floored it, speeding down the road until the airport lights reappeared in the distance. He didn't look back. But as he passed the last service light, the radio came alive again. This time with his own voice. "Cab 44, passenger delivered." Miguel's hands shook. "What the hell?" "Fare complete," the radio whispered back. Airport security found his cab an hour later, idling near the fence. The back seat was soaked in salt water, and the dashboard clock had frozen at 3:17 a.m. On the fogged rear window, traced in a child's hand, were the words, "Thank you for the ride." 3 days later, investigators discovered that a small section of the old El Segundo orphanage site had reignited. Smoldering wood and ash, as if the ground itself had remembered the fire. The origin point was exactly where Miguel's cab had been parked. Some nights, when the fog rolls over the airport and the runway lights turn orange, pilots swear they see a flicker by the service road. A lone yellow cab parked by the fence. And standing beside it, a barefoot girl in a torn white dress, waiting quietly, hoping someone else will stop and take her home. If you made it this far, thank you for spending your night with us. If these stories gave you chills, there's plenty more waiting. Don't forget to subscribe to Night Fear Stories for new terrifying tales every single night. Sleep well, if you can.